Hey, what's up guys? This is Joe from Excel by Joe. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to use Visual Basic in Excel programming for daily fantasy sports. This is a longer video. This is 90 minutes. It's a whole mini course that I'm going to go through where about 60 minutes of it is going through the basics of using Excel VBA, the basic command, and how to use the Visual Basic Studio in the Developer tab. And then the last 30 minutes are some examples. So hope you enjoy this. I hope you learned something. And please click the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And also just check out my video course at spreadsheetschooldfs.com. Link is down below and it's right on the screen for you. It's my full course for learning spreadsheets for daily fantasy. So let's get right into the video. Thanks. Visual Basic, or VBA, which is Visual Basic for Applications, is the programming language used by Microsoft Excel in order to run their macros. In this mini course, I'm going to teach you what you need to know in order to perform a lot of your daily fantasy tasks on your spreadsheets. You're going to get all the sample code that you can save and use for future use, along with a cheat sheet with a lot of the important information that I'm going to be going through in the course. This course won't make you an expert, but you will learn what you need to know in order to become very good at Visual Basic in order to do most of the tasks that you'd want to do in daily fantasy. This is only about 90 minutes or so. So, I mean, it takes many hours to become an expert in it, but you don't need to know every little aspect of Visual Basic to become proficient in creating macros for your spreadsheets. And this course will help you to do that. Visual Basic for Applications, as I mentioned before, is the programming language for the Microsoft products. One of the best parts about Visual Basic, it's an easy to understand language, which makes it easy to edit. As you can see the code on here, which says range H11 to J15.select, it just kind of almost common sense that it shows that you're highlighting that range, you're selecting it, and then the line below says clear contents, so you're just pressing delete to clear the contents. So a lot of the language is like this, but this course will go into obviously more the advanced type of programming that you're going to want to know for it. Macros are the actual routines that perform the tasks, and they're built by Visual Basic language. And I'm going to show you how to build macros either from writing code or using the macro builder that's right in Excel. Excel lets you record your keystrokes to build this VBA code, which makes it a lot real easy. But you also need to know VBA code if you want to make them a little more advanced. Sometimes the code is enough that you record with the macros, but it does sometimes need to be edited and more information needs to be added sometimes. You don't need to be an expert to be good at making macros. As long as you have just some basic knowledge of Excel, that's enough. And as long as you can follow along with the help videos or cheat sheets or other good resources for programming language. And macros work in conjunction with your spreadsheets and formulas, but they can't do everything. So you need to know to have Visual Basic language to understand it and to make the macros a little more complex to do what you need. So what I want you to do is download all the spreadsheets that are in this module, along with the cheat sheet that I have. It has a lot of important information along with some other resources. I'm going to go over how to start and set up macros. I'm going to have a lot of short videos which go over all the important items to know, like if statements, for loops, cell reference, and a lot of examples that you might use when in your daily fantasy spreadsheets. We're going to build some complete macros along the way, and I'm going to you just become proficient in VBA enough to do a lot of your tasks. If you get any questions as you go along, just send me an email and I can help you. But after you download all the spreadsheets, I think you're ready to go. And let's get into the videos. Thanks. Alright, in this video I'm going to show you the first way to start your coding or building your macros. So to do that, we're going to need to go into the Visual Basic, which is through the Developer tab. So if you go up to the top menu bar here, you click on Developer tab. However, you may not have this if this is the first time you're using it, because Developer is not one of the standard menu bars that show up when you have Excel. So it's very simple to add, though. You just go to File, down to Options, and then to Customize Ribbon. And then here's all the tabs, when you look on the right, that you want shown. I've got Developer tab checked because so it shows. Yours will probably show it unchecked, so just click the button to check it, and then click OK, and then you'll have the Developer tab on there. And now once you have it checked once, it should always stay on there every time you open and close Excel. So what you're going to need to do, you're going to Developer tab and then Visual Basic. What this is going to do, this is where all the code, all the magic happens for your Visual Basic macros. So what we're going to want to do, we're going to start off by going to Insert a Module. And then it's going to list your modules here. You could have a different module for the different types of macros you're building. So now we're in our module, and this is where we start typing the code. And all macros, all routines that we're doing, start off with the word sub, space, and then you want the name of the macro. And say if the macro is, say, highlight. I'm just calling it highlight. Maybe we're highlighting certain rows. Then you got to put double parentheses, and then when you press enter, it's going to automatically do end sub. So this is our whole routine. Here's our sub starts here, it ends here, and all this information here is where you put the code. Now, coding it's not always easy. You can start typing in code if you wanted. You could print or whatever you wanted to do. A lot of times it's best to have a cheat sheet going where you can start building the code so you know you can copy and paste from there. But in the next video, I'm going to show you a second way how to get these macros going. So let's get right into that one. So in this video, I'm going to talk about a second way to start off your macro and your coding without going through the Developer tab. And that is to just simply to start and create a macro through the macro builder. And to do that, you're going to go up to View, and then we got Macros, and we're going to record a macro. We're going to name it whatever we want. The last one I called Highlight. Let's just call this Highlight 2. Click OK. And let's say we're going to just say click a couple rows, and we're going to highlight them in yellow. Then we go to View, Macros, Stop Recording. Now that we have our macro all built, in the next video I'll show you how we can go in and edit this. Because by doing this through the macro builder, we're able to start the coding without actually having to write any of the code out that we needed to. So I'll see you in the next video. Alright, so now in this video I'm going to show you how you can view the macros in order to edit them. So we've already created this macro that highlights rows 7 and 8, and we can get into that two ways. And I'm going to show you the first way is the same way as when we recorded it. So if you're recording a macro, you go to Macros, Record Macro. Instead you go to View Macros, then just View Macros. And it's going to show which macros you want to look at. And we click Highlight 2 is the name of it. I'm going to click Edit. So this brings us to our routine. And remember in the last macro that we built, we start off by putting the word sub, then we wrote highlight, and then you put the parentheses here, and then press enter and the end sub comes up, but there's no actual coding in there. But you can, so in order to code it, you could either type in the code, but this is kind of hard to like remember all this code, like row 7, 8, like it's pretty self-explanatory if you read it. Like you highlight and see row 7 and 8 select, so you're selecting those rows, and then here the color is this, which is probably yellow, and this width, which is just adjusting like what's in this rows, like this is just making it yellow. So it's a lot to know to code. But if you to build the macro with the record macro, this is going to just build it for you. Now, it's not all you need to know, but it's a great start to building macros and using Visual Basic for your coding. So now we have this macro built, and it's all set to go. And if you look at the modules, here's the modules. If you click on the module C, this recorded in module 3. When you record a macro, it doesn't always go to create a new module or go to the last one. See, when we go to module 5, this is where we created the sub highlight. So if we wanted, we can go to number 3 here, and we can copy and paste this. We choose Control C, go over to module 5, and paste it in there. Now we got the two of them, the two macros right there that we got to make sure to delete it, because you can't have macros with the same name. So like when you create this, you can't use the macro with the same name as other macros that are on there, or it'll give you an error. There's also other naming conventions in there, like you can't use spaces. So I would just make like 1 or 2 words, just put them together, and you can put numbers in there. Just make it something descriptive so you know what it does. So now if you wanted to edit your macro, this is where you do it. You'd go right in here. You could start typing in different code or whatever that you needed. Or here is where you would start typing in the code also. But this doesn't have beginning, like your code already started. And the other way to get into it is just go from the initial way I showed you, is Developer, Visual Basic. And then right here, the left side, it shows where you are. Here's all your modules. Here's your forms if you have any. And so they both ways get you to the same spot. It gets you to the macros, and then you can start typing your code, editing this code. If all of a sudden, say you wanted this row 7 and 9, you could do that. And then when you run the macro, we're going to go to View, Macros. So we're going to highlight 2, and then we just click Run. There. See, now rows 7 to 9 just ran. So hope that helps explain how to go in to edit the code and to run a macro. All right, I'll see you in the next video. All right, so far in this course, what we've done was we've just showed you how to start building a basic macro, and I showed you how to create it using the macro builder to start off your code. And now we know how to edit it and run a macro. So those are all the very basics. Now we're going to get into a little more detail for when you want to manipulate and code the macro to do something a little more of what you want to do. And in order to do that, a lot of times you have to create variables. A variable is just maybe a letter or something that represents a number, which these numbers usually for our code, what I use them for are representing maybe cell numbers, maybe like row numbers or column numbers. So you can keep changing the reference of what Excel is looking at, so you can kind of do more advanced type of macros, which we'll get into further in the course. But in order to create variables, you need to declare a variable. What that means is you have to tell Excel what type of variable it is. For example, is it a string, like maybe some words? Is it an integer? There's many different types. Is it a long? There's a whole bunch of different types, which I'll list out below in the text. But really, the two main ones that I use are string or integer. And I'm going to show you in a second how to declare them. You only have to use the term dim, and then you declare the variables. But just really some of the benefits of declaring the variables are just that your code will run faster. It's going to reduce the errors, since the system already will know what kind of data this is. And it just makes it easier to debug when errors do come up. But as I said, it's not like if you end up not declaring a variable. I mean, if you have a small code and you don't declare the variable, or you forget to do it, most likely the program's still going to run fine. But that's just best practices is to declare variables, and especially if you're running very large macros, it's something you want to do. And let's go to our Developer tab, our Visual Basic, and here's our macros. So here's our macro that we initially have. we don't have any variables on here yet, but we're going to make a variable shortly. So let's actually just code in this one, this one called highlight, and all you need to do is you're going to type dim, and then whatever you want the variable to be named. Say the first one is, say, YDS. So I'm declaring YDS as a variable, which would be like yards. So I'm dim YDS as integer. And see, when you start typing, the little assistant will come on. So you can type in integer, will pop up. If it's a string, you can start typing str and string will come up. So I'm calling it integer. Then if we do another one, dim, say TD, say touchdown, as, I'm going to do another integer. And if we had to declare other variable types, you can check the text below the video for the other variable types. But mainly I use integer because most of the time we're just working with the numbers, and I just want to use those best practices. So that's it for declaring the variables, and in the next video we will get into using the actual variables. Thanks. Alright, in this video I'm going to talk about cell reference. And cell reference, I feel, is one of the most important things to me when I do the VBA coding for daily fantasy. It allows you to kind of choose a location to look at a certain cell and pull in that value to use with like the rest of your program. So what that an example would be is, say if you want to check the value in cell A4, there's a code that we can have where you can select, where it's called cells parentheses 1 comma 4, where the first number is the rows and the second number is the columns, and that will let you kind of choose a certain cell. And then what's great about that is you can create a variable, say you're declaring X as a variable. In the last videos we used like YDS for yards, but you don't have to have more than one letter for a variable. It can be simply like an X. And it will then you can change it by adding, say, and having the cells X comma 1 or X comma 4 here, where X represents 1. So it would still represent this row, this A comma 4. And then you can simply do in the code X equals X plus 1. So now X will equal 2. So now it's looking at the second one, which is cells 2 comma 4, which would be cell B4. So it's a little confusing until you actually see it in an example. So let's look at an example. Okay, so we've got our cell right here, and say we wanted to highlight a certain cell. Just a very basic example for now. We're going to go to our code, and we've got already dimmed yards, these as integers, but let's just change these. And I'm going to use, say, X and Y as the integers. X is going to be what row we're in, and Y is going to be the column we're in. And we're going to start typing code. So I'm going to put in cells, parentheses, X comma Y, and the parentheses, dot select. And when you start typing something and you press enter, if the words, like if you had them, like I had them in small letters, now all of a sudden they're capital letters, that means the code is recognized by Visual Basic, by Excel. So what this is going to do, it's going to select cell X comma Y. If we go back to our Excel, X, the first digit in this cells is the rows. So what row do you want to be? We want to be row 1, and what column do we want to be? We want to be in column D. So if we want to say, if we want D1, so we would want 1 comma 4, because 4 is the fourth column, which is D. So what we're going to do, after we declared the variables, we need to set them to be equal to something. So X equals 1, Y equals 4. So now our code is going to read this as cells 1 comma 4 equals select. And now that we selected it, let's copy this code right here to highlight it. So what it's going to do, it's going to select this one cell, then it should highlight in yellow because we already have the code from another section. So if you ever can't find the code of something you want to do, just run a macro and you'll be able to get the code. So now I'm going to close it out, and if we're going to go to View Macros, and if I'm going to run this highlight code, I'm going to click Run. There, see? It went to 1, 4, which is row 1, fourth column, which is D. So, and it highlighted it. So our macro ran successfully. So you can do more than just highlighting. This is where you can check these cell values and do different operations with the cell values. And in an upcoming video, I will show you how to do that. But this is the basics of using a cell reference to point to a certain location in your spreadsheet. Thanks, and see you in the next video. Okay, so so far what we've learned was about variables, how to declare them and how to set them up, and also how to do a cell reference to reference a certain cell. In this video, we're going to go into checking an if statement. An if statement basically will check if something is true, then you do this, and if it's not true, then you do the else part. So it's pretty similar to the function if you use the if function in Excel, but we just have to write it in code. So to do that, we're going to go over to our Visual Basic. And I deleted our code from the last time, so we still have this highlight. We declared the variable, and I changed the numbers to 2 and 5. What we want to do is check. What I want to do is just do a simple if to check this cell. We're going to check row 2 and column 5, which is E. If this equals this captain, CPT, then we want to highlight the whole row in yellow. If it doesn't equal to captain, then we're not going to do anything. So I'm going to go back to the code. And first off, we have our variables all set. So we're going to start with our if. So if, and this is where we do our cells X, Y. So if this cell, this reference, so it's 2, 5 equals CPT, then what do you want to do? Well, what we want to do is we want to select the whole row and make it yellow. So to select the whole row, we're going to type in rows. And what row are we in? We're in row X. Dot select. So that this is going to do, this is going to select the whole row. Not only just, this is just a certain cell. And if you don't know all these codes offhand, don't worry about it. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I still have to reference back to different cheat sheets or different websites to see the certain code. So with these videos, I'll have a cheat sheet set for you to look at. So we're selecting this row, and then how about highlighting? We got the code down here, which we did when we built our first macro. So I'm going to paste it in. So what we're doing, we're highlighting, we're selecting this whole row, and then we're making it yellow. And that's all we're going to do. And then, so that's for the, if it's true, then we need an else. So else, what are you going to do if it's not true? We could do something else, some other, maybe we can make it bold, we can do something else, but I'm just going to leave it as end if, so you don't have to put an else in there. So now let's run it. Okay, so here we are. So it's going to check 2, 5, which is this. So what I'm expecting to happen is we're going to go to View Macros, this highlight. We're going to run it. We're expecting this whole row to highlight in yellow. Press Run, and there it is. It checked this cell, and it highlighted in yellow. So now let's go back and edit the code. What if this is row 12? Let's see, row 12 is a flex. So let's see what happens then. It's going to check if it equals to captain, then make it yellow. If not, then don't do anything. So now when we go to View Macros, we run it, and nothing happened. Because it checked this cell. It's like, oh, it doesn't equal CPT. So let's go to the else. But in else, there was no other code. so we just left it alone. So that is how you write an if statement, and we'll be getting into using these more complex, because doing something simple like this isn't really going to help anything. But when we start building upon it and using some of the other tools, we can get some pretty neat features running with these macros. So that's it for the video, and see you in the next. All right. So in this video, we're going to learn about a for loop. What a for loop will do is allow you to perform an action more than one time. Like in our last video, we talked about the if statement, and we checked this if statement to see if this equals captain, and if it does, you highlight in yellow, which is all great, but that's only one row, and we've got about 50 or 60 rows here. What if we want to check each one of these rows and highlight the whole row if this cell equals captain? We can do that with a for loop. So to do that, we're going to go into our Visual Basic, and we've got our code right here. So let's go back to the beginning. We're going to start off with cells 2, 5. And we'll check it. If it equals captain, then we're going to highlight it in yellow. We select the whole row. And if it doesn't, then we don't do anything. So what we need to do is we need to put a for loop around this to keep repeating this while increasing this x, which is the row. So we start off at a 2, so we're looking here. Then we want this to be a 3, then a 4, all the way down for a certain number of times. So to type the code, we're going to do for I equals 1 to 50, something like that. So what that's doing is I is just the variable that I'm using to that we're going to keep adding 1 to until we get up to 50. So it starts off at 1. So we're kind of setting up the variable here as I is equal to 1. It's going to run this routine. So everything in the parentheses, or anything below this for loop right here, is going to get run. And then we're going to put next I down at the bottom. So all that's going to do is everything between this 4 and this next I, this is going to get repeated where I equals 1, then equals 2, and it's going to do it 50 times. But if we're going to do this right here, x equals 2 and y equals 5, it's going to look at reference, which is E2. It's going to look at this cell, then it's going to check it, and then it's going to end. And if it does it again, it's going to still look at 2, 5, and it's going to keep checking the same cell. It's not going to be any use to us unless we put something on here like x equals x plus 1. So now what this problem is going to do, it's going to run this code, everything here. It's going to run this 50 times because you have 1 to 50. If you want to only run it 20 times, you can make this from 1 to 20. It's checking this cell. Does it equal captain? If it does, it's highlighting it. If it doesn't, it's end. But then once we do it, it's adding 1. So now the next time it's going to check 3, 5, then 4, 5, then 5, 5, all the way up to doing this 50 times. So let's run this and see what happens. So we're going to view macros, and we're going to run highlight. And there we go. If you look, every time it found the word CPT in here, it highlighted the whole row. And if it didn't find CPT, which was flex, or if it said anything else, it didn't highlight it. And it went down 50 times. And see how it stopped right here at 52, because this is where we started at row 2. And this one is not highlighted because we only had it run 50 times. If we go back and say 100, and now we run it, we click run. It'll take a few seconds. And there we go. Look, see, it's highlighting now all these extra ones, but it's only highlighting the ones that say CPT, which is meeting our criteria. So that is how you run a for loop, and that is something that you will probably be using quite often when you're doing your Visual Basics, because I use it quite a bit for my repeating different tasks on my daily fantasy when you don't know the number of rows that you might have. So sometimes this is 70 rows, sometimes 30. So it's going to be very different, big variable. So a for loop is very important, and I hope this helps explain it. See you in the next video. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Joe. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Visual Basic, which is a macro. It's a programming for a macro to write some code and to delete records from a spreadsheet. So we got this spreadsheet, which is a FanDuel export, and it's about 700 lines. It's of all the games. And say we want to delete all the records except maybe one team. I'm going to show you the code that we can do that. So before we get into that, if you like the video, if you can give it a thumbs up and maybe post a comment or share it. And also check out my video course that I have. I actually got two video courses. I got a mini course just on using Visual Basic for daily fantasy sports. That link will be below, and also I've got my full course of just using spreadsheets for daily fantasy, which is now up to 10 modules. So if you want to check those out, that would be great. So let's get right into the video. Okay, we've got our spreadsheet here, and what I'm going to do, we need to start writing our code. So we're going to go up to Developer, and then Visual Basic. If you don't have the Developer tab, you're going to have to add it through your options, but I'm not going to get into that now. I'm just going to go through the code. I talk about that more in my course. So we're in our Visual Basic part. We're going to insert a module, and this is where we're going to start typing our code. So I'm going to call this sub, let's just call it delete rows. So everything within here is going to be the code for our macro. And what we need to do is let's start writing this. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to declare a variable, dim I as an integer, because actually if we go back, what I'm planning to do is we got 700 rows. I'm going to start from the bottom, from like say row 700, and I'm going to keep checking if this team, because we're gonna have a input box pop up that say which team do you want to save, and say we put say Seattle. It's gonna go team by team and see if this says Seattle, we'll keep it. If it doesn't say Seattle, we're gonna delete that row, and we're gonna go all the way up to the top, and then when we get to the very top, it's gonna stop looking at it. The reason I don't start from the top is because if we happen to delete a row, then everything else is going to shift, and then we're going to miss rows that way from the shift. So that's why it's best to start from the bottom. So let's get back into our code here, and I'm declaring I as an integer. I is going to be our row number, and I'm going to declare it as an integer. So next I'm going to put A equal to input box. So A is going to be another variable, and we're going to type in what our input box is. So it's just going to be a pop-up, which is going to say, which team do we keep? So it's going to be a pop-up, but we're going to type in whichever team we want to keep. Like in the example I was saying, we put Seattle. We typed it in there. And now we're going to assign a value to I. So I is equal to 700. So we're going to start at row 700. And the main part of what we're going to do is called a do-while loop. So do-while. So all this code that's going to be in here, because do-while, we first put the condition, that's criteria. So as long as I is greater than 0, then we're going to do our code. And at the end, we're going to put loop. So that just means it's going to do all this code, and it's just going to keep looping until this condition is met. So once I is not greater than 0, so once I becomes 0, so this 700 is just going to keep reducing in value. And to do that, what we need to do is start running our code. And we're going to make an if statement. So if cells, and this is where we put the reference to our cell. And first is the row index, which is going to be a variable I. And then the column index, if we go back to our spreadsheet, this is the column that we want to look at because we want to check if our input box equals this value, which is the team name. So with this column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I, 10 is equal to A, then, so that's our code, that's the beginning part of our if statement. So we're going to start off at row 700, column 10. So it's going to go all the way down here to row 700, column 10, and so there's nothing even there. So that's not going to come up with anything. Is it going to equal to A? A is going to be what our box says, what our input box says. If it does equal to A, so if it equals the team that we want, we don't want to do anything. So we're going to just leave this blank. So then we're going to put else. What do we do if it doesn't equal to A? We want to delete that row. So then we're going to put rows I. So that means whatever row that is, row 700 dot delete. So that's the code to delete that row. And then we want to put end if. So here's our if statement that we're going to keep running while I is greater than 0. But we need one more step because right now I is 700. If it keeps like this, we're just going to keep checking cell 700, which is comma 10. Nothing's going to happen. So we have to do I equals I minus 1. All that's going to do is it's going to reduce it every time it loops through. So it's going to look at row 700, then row 699 and 698, all the way up until I equals 0, and then it's going to stop. So that's all our whole code, and this should work. So I'm going to close it out, and we'll go up to the top, and now we're going to run it. So all we do that is go up to View Macros, and delete rows. We're going to click Run. Which team do you want to keep? BUF. Let's keep Buffalo. I'm going to make it case sensitive because I'm pretty sure the code will not work if it doesn't match exactly by the case. So click OK. And now it's processing. It's starting row 700. It's working its way up. And done. So what we did, if you look, all we got left are Buffalo players. We got Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and all the way down. So that's how we code. We actually deleted the top heading. Probably should have stopped before row 1. It should have stopped at row 2. But outside of that, this worked perfect. We got all our Buffalo Bill players, just like we wanted with the code. So that is it for writing the VBA code. Now this is just kind of a quick overview. I don't touch on I'm not touching on every detail about VBA, but if you want to check out my courses, the links are down below. My full course is at spreadsheetsschooldfs.com, where I talk about using Visual Basic for spreadsheets for daily fantasy, along with many other topics, including build your own lineup optimizer, creating projections, and so on. So check those out. Give us a thumbs up if you like this, and let me know if you get any questions. Hope you enjoyed using the Visual Basic, and I'm going to try to pump out a few more Visual Basic videos over the next couple weeks. So that's it, guys. Talk to you later. Thanks. All right. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to put comments into your code. Comments are great because they don't change the code, but they help you understand the code when you're going back to edit it. It's also great if you're writing code for other people so they can kind of see what you're doing. But I put comments in mine all the time because I forget where items are or what they do, and it's easier to, especially if you have really long macros, to put. It makes it a lot easier when you're debugging it to just put some comments in there, which are nice and simple. So we're going to go into the Visual Basic, and we've got our code right here, and you can put it's simple to put a comment. All you have to do is put this little one line, just like apostrophe there. Then you can type whatever you want. So this could be, say, macro for VBA DFS training video. So now this isn't code. It's not going to do anything, but see how it made it in green? So you can quickly see what the code is. And it could just be anything that you want to type. So here I'm going to put declare variables. Here is assign variable amounts. This is maybe just a description of what this is going to do. Highlight all rows where the player is CPT or captain. So that's kind of just describing what this is doing. You don't have to put a comment next to each line. Now we just know this whole routine is the code. So if you end up coming back and saying, well, I'm getting an error when I'm highlighting it, maybe I don't want it to be yellow, I want it to be a different color. You can scroll through here real quick and see, oh, here we go. Here's the where we're highlighting all rows. And if you have, I mean, this is only like 20 lines. You may have 1,000 lines. This is still a text editor. You can do Control F and it find, and maybe you want to find CPT because you know it's looking for that. It's going to go through and it's going to find it in here, so you can quickly go to where your code is. So that's all comments do. They're pretty necessary unless you're just making a 5-line code for something that's not big. But if it's anything that has any type of bulk to it, I would put comments in there. So that's it for the video, and see you in the next one. Bye. Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to stop showing the screen updating and to just have it run without the screen updating. So when you run a macro, a lot of times you'll see each step. Like if you see it typing in certain words or deleting rows, you'll pretty much see the actions as if you're doing it just at a real fast speed. And when you do a simple quick macro, you can barely notice it. But if you're doing a macro that runs for, say, 20 seconds, you're going to see all the code that's updating. Whether you want to see it or not is up to you. If you don't care that you see the screen updating, I mean, you can kind of tell them what the macro is doing. So that's fine too. But this, I'm going to show you some code which gets rid of that screen updating. So now, say we're back on here. We're going to run this macro. And you didn't really see any of the screen updating because all it was doing was just highlighting the rows. It wasn't actually deleting any rows or inserting any rows. However, I'm going to go to this. I'm going to click Edit. All you have to do is just one line of code will get rid of the screen updating. All you just have to type in is application dot. And if you start typing and put screen, see screen updating. You can double click on it. Equals false. So now all it's going to do is get rid of the screen updating. So if we run this code again, get rid of the highlights so we can see, make sure that it did something. So view, and we'll run it. There. And see, you know how the last time we did it, it would end up bringing us right down to the bottom row, and see how it has it highlighted. The getting rid of the screen updating just gets rid of all the step after step after step. It just runs it in the background and then just takes you to the final result. So it's all up to your preference, but that's just a simple way with one line of code to get rid of it. And that's it. Nice, simple, quick video. See you next one. Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to pop up a message box. Sometimes like a little message box that'll come up here. How to get that set up. With just a simple code. So I'm gonna go to developer and go to the Visual Basic. So we've got our macros here. Let's create a new macro. It's called sub, and we'll just call it, I'm gonna call it ending. So here's our code. to get a message box, all you're going to do is type in MSGBOX, parentheses, quotes, and then what do you want it to say? We'll just say the macro is finished, period, quote, and the parentheses. That's all you want. All you want it to say. I mean, obviously you can have it say whatever you want, but this is just to kind of show how to run to get it set up. So now we got message box says the macro is finished. We close it out. Now we're going to go to view macros. Here's ending. We're going to run it. There it is. See, there's your little pop-up. The macro is finished. We're going to click OK. And that's it. Just a quick video to show you how to create a message box, which we'll use more. Actually, in the next video, I'm going to show you a little more with it. So that's it, and see you in the next one. Alright, in this video, I'm going to teach you how to call another macro from within your macro code. Calling another macro allows you to keep running the code without having the same code in multiple times. So let me show you an example. So we got developer, we're going to go to our macro, and see we just created this macro called ending. All right, and all it's doing is saying the macro is finished. Here's our macro which called highlight, which has a little more bulk to it. We got some steps. What if we want at the end of this macro to have a pop-up that says the macro is finished? We could type in the code that we just did in the last video, and that would be perfectly fine. But what if we have 50 macros and we want that code to be at the end of every macro? We could type that code in for each of the 50 macros, okay? Or we could just call it. So if I put call ending, see how this all of a sudden became a capital C, so now it recognized it. What it's going to do, it's just going to call this macro. So it's going to run all this code, it's going to come here, it's going to call this macro, it's going to do whatever the macro code says, then it's going to continue on. So if we had more code here, it would continue that code after it calls the macro. But the benefit of calling a macro is, what if all of a sudden we go in and say, we want to say, well, the macro is finished, have a good day. I don't know. Well, we wanted to say something more. All we'd have to do now is just change it in this one code in this one routine for ending. And then when it calls it, it's going to do that new code. If we have that code in each of the 50 macros, we'd have to go in one by one in each one of the 50 and changing that code, which would be a pain in the butt. And I mean, we're calling a code that only has one line, but what if this code has 30 lines in it? Maybe it's doing a certain routine like deleting certain rows or checking something else. And if you have to change, if you're using this code a lot, it's better to just call the macro, because then you would don't have to change all the code if you need it to adjust it. So we're going to call the ending, and we can put our comment in here. Just puts up message box that macro is over. So now we have our code. We know if we're reviewing this, like, oh, we got to check ending, and that's the code for it. We'd go here, and this is the code that we would change. So now we're back here. Let's get rid of all the highlights again, and now let's run the macro. We're running highlight. We're going to run it. There, the macro is finished. Have a good day. Press OK. And now we've got all our highlighted lines, and we were able to call that code from the middle of this macro. So hope this was helpful, and let's move on to the next. And in this video, what I'm going to do is show you how to protect your code back in your the VBA editor. So if you're doing this spreadsheet for yourself, you don't need to do this. If you're sending it out to maybe to some people and you don't care if they see the code, that's fine. You don't need to do this. But if you want to protect your code, if you're sending this out to a lot of people, you don't want people to view what code you've done, you can protect it. So we're going to go to do it. We go to Developer, Visual Basic, and we're here with all our modules and our programs. And all you need to do is go to Tools, VBA Project Properties, go to protection. We're going to lock it. Put your password in. And click OK. And then all you got to do is close it out and save it. And it's all set. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to file. I'm going to close this out. And let's go back into it. So we'll go back to File. Right here it is VBA Examples. So now once we open the file, what we're going to do is going to go back into the VBA editor. So we got that here. We're going to go to Developer, Visual Basic. And now say we want to click on here and go to our modules. It's not going to let us. It's going to protect it. If you don't put your protection in there, then it's not going to let you in. But if I put my password in, there, now it shows the modules. We can click on our module. And there's our highlight macro that we did, and here's our other ones. So that's how you can put a protection onto your VBA code. Thanks a lot. Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you two shortcuts on how to run macros a lot quicker. So now if you have the file and say we want to run our highlight macro that we've just been building, you would have to go up to View Macros, find it in here, and press Run. So there's about 5 different steps you have to do. There's 2 ways we can do it a lot quicker. So what we can do, the first one is to put a button in there that we can attach it to. So I'm going to go to Insert, and then Shapes, and then I'm going to pick any shape. I'm just going to pick a square, but you can pick any shape you want. I'm going to put the button in there. You're going to right click on it and go down to Assign Macro. Then all you got to do is find Highlight and click OK. And then if you want to go to Edit Text, by right clicking on it, you can just put some wording onto your button. Okay, so we've got the button, and now if all we have to do is if we press the button, the macro is finished. Have a good day. So when you press OK, we got our highlights. So the macro just ran just by pressing the highlight button. So that's the first way. And there's one other way I want to show you, is you can put a shortcut onto the macro. So we're going to go to View Macros, and then you click on Highlight, and we're going to go to Options down here. Then here you can put the shortcut key, so it's Control plus whatever letter. Say I'm just going to put Z. Control plus Z. So I'm going to press OK, and I'm going to close it out. So now instead of having a button, all you have to do is be on the page, press Control Z, and there we go. Our macro ran. There's our message box, and there's all the yellow highlights. So those are 2 ways to create shortcuts and to get your macros to run a lot faster. So hopefully this is helpful. I will see you guys soon. Thanks. Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to debug a program if you start getting errors or you're just not getting the expected outcome that you wanted from your macros. So to do that, we're going to go to Developer and then to Visual Basic, and we're going to find our macro that we want to look at. So it's sub highlight. Say we're running it and it's not doing exactly what we expected it to. So we're just going to put our cursor right on the first line or wherever you want to start checking it. And you can do debug and step into, and what the program will do, instead of running the whole thing at once, it'll run step by step each part of this macro, and you can follow along, but you can watch to see what actually happens on your actual spreadsheet. I mean, this is definitely better if you have 2 screens, if you have 2 monitors that you're working on, but it'll work fine if you don't. I'm just kind of splitting my screen here. I've got the VBA editor on top of the Excel, and all I'm going to do is go to debug and then step into, and I'm just going to keep pressing that, or you press F8 and it'll do that. So right now it's just reading the variables here, nothing that it's going to do. Now we're starting to read the for loop. There, see it now? It checked the cell, and then now it's selected the whole row. We're going to keep doing it. I'm stepping into it. There, and now see, dot color equals 65535 is yellow, and it just made it yellow. So I'm just going to go step by step. Ended if, now it's going to do x equals x plus 1, and then next I. So now it's going to do the whole thing again. And now see, we're on the second line, and it highlighted it. And if we keep going, it'll highlight like that one in yellow too, very shortly. There we go, and it just highlighted that in yellow. So if we were looking through this and we were wondering, oh, why is it doing a certain thing? You can run through step by step and figure out how to see where the error is and why it's happening. Hopefully that helps you with when you get errors in your program. If you got any questions, let me know, and see you in the next video. Thanks. Alright, in this video I'm going to kind of show you a way to get code when you don't know what the actual code is. So say you want to write a macro where you're taking, say, the first 20 rows or 20 cells from this column and copying them over to this column. But maybe you don't know offhand how to write the code for it. The best way to do it is just to create a macro to get you on the starting point to having that code. Then you can go in and edit it with any if statements or for loops or any other programming tools that you want to add. So to do that, all we're going to do is go to View, Macro, Record Macro. We're going to call it whatever we want. I'm just going to call it column G. We'll press OK. So all the macro's doing is I just wanted to copy the first 20 items. I'm highlighting it, pressing Control C, and I'm copying it to column G, pressing Control V. And that's it. So I'm going to stop recording, and now I'm going to go up to View the Macro, and it's column G, and I click Edit, and there we have our code. So now we've got the range, selection, copy, and then we're going to cell G2, and we're pasting it, and then we're just ending up on range G9, which I'm going to delete because that's not even any necessary to what we're doing here. So now that we have this code, you may want to add on other code, or maybe you're making a real big macro and you're just not sure on how to do this copy paste. So then all you'd have to do is just highlight it, copy, and then paste it into your larger macro that you're doing the work on. So that's just a quick, easy way without looking through any references to see, like, okay, how do I highlight a bunch of cells? How do I copy it? What's the code to paste it? Just run a quick macro, copy, and when you copy this over to say you wanted to put this in your highlight macro right at the very end. So like you're on the next part of your macro. So I'm going to go back to the highlight macro. I paste it in there. There, now we have our code. Now we can go back to the module 6 where we made this macro and delete it. We don't need it anymore because the only purpose of making the macro was to get the code, which we have right here now. So hopefully that's a good tip to help you guys get code that you need when you're building something. And I am done with the video. See you in the next. Hey, so in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create a macro which looks at the value of one cell and then does it chooses which macro it calls to run depending on which one you want to choose, which the value is. So let's clear this out just to start it off so we can show you what's going on. And say we have this right here where let's see, choose captain or flex. So say in this cell right here, you're going to choose Captain or Flex, and whichever one you choose, that is what's going to get highlighted here. Either if you choose CPT for Captain, when we run the macro, all of them will be highlighted, just like our macro that we have already made. But we're also going to get a separate macro that'll highlight the Flex ones. So let's put CPT in there. So before we start, we need to have both our macros set. So let's go to the Visual Basic Editor. We're in Module 5, I believe. So here's our code, highlight. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this whole thing. Press Control-C. I'm going to go down to the very bottom here. Press Control-V. So now I've got all the code again. And I'm going to call this one Highlight Flex. So now instead of looking for CPT and highlighting it, if it says Flex, those are the ones we're going to highlight in yellow. And let's delete this code. This is just a code from the previous example we don't need. So here is our code to highlight the Flex ones, and here is our code to highlight the CPT ones. So now we've got both our macros, which we can call. Now let's build the if statement macro to decide which one they want to highlight. So we're going to call this sub choice. Here we go. So we're going to do the if statement, if cells, and let's figure out what cell that we're looking at. So we're looking at this cell, which is row 14, and N is actually the 14th column also. So we're looking at cell 14, 14. So if cell 14, 14 equals CPT, then we're going to call highlight, because that's the macro we want to call. Because if it says CPT, we want this macro to run because it'll highlight the ones that say CPT. Then else, we're going to call highlight flex, because that's the one that if it doesn't say captain, it'll have to say flex. So we'll end if right there. So now we wrote the macro that says if it equals captain, we're going to highlight the ones that say captain. Otherwise, we're going to highlight the ones that say flex. We ended our if, and that's the end of our routine. So I'm going to close this out. So now we got, choose captain or flex. I got captain in here. We can go to View, Macros, and it's choice right here. So we're going to run it. Macros finished. Have a good day. There. See, it highlighted all the ones that say CPT, because that's what we chose, because we had captain on there. Now let's try it again. Let's get rid of all the colors. And now what if we put flex in here? So it doesn't say captain. Now we're going to go View Macros, View Macros. We're going to do choice and click run. Does the same thing. Macros finished. Have a good day. Press OK. And look, now it highlighted all the ones that say flex, since we put the word flex there. So that's a way to look at a certain cell and then run a macro based on the routine. And you don't have to look for words. It could be numbers too. You could maybe be looking at the sum of this column. If this is over a certain number, then you run this certain macro. Otherwise, you run another macro, or do other certain routine. So that's how we can use an if statement in there to look at a certain cell reference. And hope this example was helpful to you. And all the code will be in below with the downloads on this file. So if you wanted to refer back to it. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks. Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to use an input box to ask for input and then take that result and plug it into your macro to run your operations. So we're going to use the highlight example that we've been using, And the last we've left off, we have the highlight example. Look at this cell. And if it says flex, it highlights all the ones that say flex. If it says CPT, it highlights all the ones that are captain. What we're going to do is ask for an input that'll say, do you want to use captain or flex? Take that input and then highlight those. So let's go to our code. And here we are, we're on highlight. And here's our code. And you see it's going to do 100 times. It checks if this cell equals captain. Then it does the code. What we want to do is change it up a little bit. So we're going to say dim choice because we got to create a new variable as string because we're looking for a choice of either flex or CPT. And then here we're going to call this choice equals parentheses quote or equals input box, then parentheses quote, and then what do you want it to say? Say, do you want to highlight flex or captain? There. So this is we're gonna give the value of the variable choice as whatever we put here, flex or captain, when the pops up. So now when we're going to do our routine, instead of saying if cells, which is E2, which is 2, 5, equals captain, then do your routine. But instead of equals captain, what we're going to do, we're just going to say if it equals choice. So now it's going to check if it equals flex or captain, and then it's going to run the highlights yellow. Otherwise, it's going to not do anything and go to the next line. So we have all our code in there. It was only those couple lines, but this is the most important one here, is the input box code. And like with all the code, I'm going to have it down below in the videos too, so you can copy and paste the code when you need it. And it's also going to be on the cheat sheet. So let's run the macro. View macros, we're going to go to highlight, and let's run it. It says, do you want to highlight flex or captain? Let's highlight CPT for captain. Macro's finished. Have a good day. And there we go. All the captain ones are highlighted. Let's test it out the other way. Let's get rid of highlights. I'm going to go to the macros. We're going to run highlight. Which do you want? How about flex? Macro's finished. Have a good day. And all the flex ones are highlighted. So see how we were able to create a simple input box, take that variable that we get from it, and plug it into our code, and there's the results. So I hope this is helpful. Hope you're going to use input box, and let me know if you get questions. Thanks. Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to pull data from a website and then use a macro to refresh the data every time you want to have the new data set. So this isn't like data scraping or web scraping. This is still using the tools Excel gives you to pull data, but the macro is just going to be able to refresh the data just at the click of a button. So I've got my website right here. It's Basketball Reference. It's just for the daily leaders. I'm going to copy that, press Control C. And first thing what we want to do is get a page of the data. So let's go. Let's just get a new page, and we'll go to Data, and then from the web. So we're not going to start the macro yet because we want to initiate the website pull first of all. So I'm going to paste our basketballreference.com URL in here. And now not every website allows you to pull the data from it, but this is one that does. So I'm going to click Connect. And now it's establishing a connection. And then we're going to click on our table. So this is the table that we want, because it's got all the information here. And then we're going to click Load. All right, there. So now we've got our table. of data, and this is the refresh. So this is the last game, and actually, since this is I'm doing this in November now, this is the last game of the championship, the last championship game. So this is stats from that game. So now we have a refresh data, and all we'd have to do to, once it's basketball season and you want to get updated data, you go to right click and click refresh. So what I'm going to do, first let's name the sheet, and we'll call it NBA Logs. I'm going to go just to any other sheet, and let's build a macro. So we're going to go to View Macros. I want to start at a different sheet, so just in case you happen to not be on the NBA Logs, I want it to go to that sheet, and that's what we can build when we record our macro. So I'm going to go Record Macro, and I'm going to call it NBA Log for the name of the macro. So our first step is we go to the NBA Logs tab. Then I'm going to click on a cell near the top. I'm going to right click and find refresh, press refresh. Now it's pulling in the data. Now obviously we just did it, so it's going to pull in the same data. And that's it. So then we're going to go to File, Stop Recording. So then if we go now to Developer and Visual Basic, we can go to our last module. And here it is, NBA Log. So if we look at this, here's the code. It says Sheets, NBA Logs. That's select. So we selected that sheet. I went to cell B2. This application copy cut mode is false. That's irrelevant. We don't really need that. Then here is the selection, list object, query table, and refresh. And that's just the code to refresh the data pull that's on there. So that's our whole code. That's all the code that we need in order to run refresh. And then what you can do is attach this macro to either a shortcut key, so you can press Control X and it'll refresh it, or to a button and refresh, or however else you want to do it. So that's just a basic macro to pull in data from a web table. Hope you guys enjoy it, and if you have questions, let me know. Thanks. Hey, in this video, I'm going to show you how to run a macro when you open a workbook. So you don't have to press a button or any control key shortcuts. All you're going to do is just put a little code in, and one of your macros will run as soon as the file opens. So in a previous example, what we did was we created code to refresh data on this NBA log sheet. So it's going to refresh our data. So say it's NBA season and you want to open up your NBA file, and every time you open up the file, which would probably be daily, it'll refresh your data from the sheet. So what we're going to do is go to do this, go to Developer, then Visual Basic, and here's our code for NBA log. What we need to do is, see, here's the VBA project, VBA examples.xlsm. That's our file that we're working on. You need to click into this workbook, and here's our new module, our new code. We're going to type in private sub workbook underscore open, and then the 2 parentheses. Press enter. So now this is in this workbook. Whatever code we have in here is what's going to run when our workbook opens, and that's all you got to do. So I'm going to go to our other module where we created our NBA logs, and all I'm going to do is just copy the code. I'm going to press Control C. I'm going to go back to this workbook, Control V to paste it in. There. So now when this workbook opens, it's going to go to this tab and refresh the data. So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to go to a different sheet here and save it, and then we're going to close out the file and reopen it, and just to see if it'll work. So what I'm going to do is now delete the data in here. I'm going to go to the salary tab. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to close it out, and then I'm going to reopen it, and just to make sure that it works. So I close the file. Now I'm going to open it just to make sure that the macro runs when you open the file. So we're going to go to Open, VBA Examples. Remember, we deleted everything from that NBA log sheet. So what this should do is take us to that sheet. It took us to the sheet, and there we go. It did the refresh. So now we have our macro set up to refresh today's data. So if you're in your NBA file, you got your data ready to go, ready to look at for the next slate. So that's it for the example, and see you guys in the next video. Let me know if you have questions. Hey everyone. In this video, what I'm going to do is show you how to create a full macro from scratch that takes the results from this NBA logs. This is your daily update of stats, and adds it to the bottom of your complete list of game logs, which this would be all the previous game logs right on here. So to do that, we're going to do this in a couple steps. The first step I want to do is build the macro to do the copy and paste. And then we're going to have to get into some code because not everything's going to be the same. What I'm going to be doing is copying 22 lines here and adding it to the very bottom, which is row 184. But it's not always going to be that case. It's just today's case. And tomorrow's example, it might be line 210 you might be adding it to. So to do this, we're going to start off by creating a macro. Go to New, Record Macro, and I'll call this Move NBA. Let's call it that. So what we need to do is we go to our NBA logs sheet. We've got that here. We're going to copy this whole sheet. I'm going to press Control-C to copy it. I'm going to go over to the game logs. And I'm going to go to cell A184 and press Control-V. And there. Now we have our game logs added in. And I'm going to stop recording the macro. So let's go to our Visual Basic and look at the code. So here it is, NBA. Well, actually, we were looking for Move NBA, so that's Module 8. And let's look at what the code did. So it did Sheets NBA log select, so it moved us to the right worksheet. And then it did the range of, it copied the table, and so did select copy. And then what it did is it went to Sheets, the game log sheet, went to range to cell 184 and pasted it. And then this is just with the cell where it ended up. All these active window scrolls is just me scrolling down on the sheet. And then I selected another range. So I'm going to delete that because that's unimportant code that we don't need. All we need to do is go to this NBA logs, copy the table, select copy, and then we're going to go to the game logs and add it to the end. However, we need to add a little bit of code here in order to make this work. So first off, we're going to the NBA logs sheet. That's fine. And we're doing the range. We're going to copy the whole table. So whatever's in this table, we'll copy. So that works out fine. It'll copy this table. But then here, when we go to game logs, this is where we're going to run into a little problem because we're not always going to range 184, A184, because see now we're in game logs. If the next day comes, we want to go to 206. So in order to do that, we need to add a little bit of code onto here. So what we need to do first off is declare a variable, and I'm going to call it game range as range. So because we have to create a range first, because I want to see how many lines of there are in this game logs. See, right now there's 205 lines. Okay, so now we set our range. Next step is to go into here, and this is where we want to do a count. So I'm going to call this game result. So game result. Actually, before we do that, we have to set what game range is equal to. So set game range equal to range parentheses A1 colon A. I'm just some high number, 200,000. Let's see, what did I miss here? Oh, I forgot. See, you got to have quotation marks at the beginning and the end when you type in range. So what that's doing is, see, we're on Gamelogs, and the range is A1 to A200,000. So if we go to that, so we're on Gamelogs, and it's basically this whole column. That's the range. Because what we're going to do, I'm going to count how many non-blank cells we have, so we know we want to start on a blank cell when we're doing our paste. So the next part is I'm going to count how many blanks there are. So it's game result equals, and this is where we do the function, worksheet function dot count A. See, once you start typing it in after the dot, it'll come in here. So we got count A, and then parentheses, and what's the range? We're going to put game range. So what that's going to do, count A counts is an Excel function that counts how many non-blank cells you have. So basically, how many cells have data in them. So if we're looking in from A1 to A200,000, game result is going to be this. It's going to be non-blank cells, which in this case will be 205 would be the result. So now that we know how many non-blank cells there are, we know where we want to start. So what we're going to do, actually we're going to add one to it, because we want to start, because if there's 205 non-blank cells, we want to start at 206, because that's where we're going to start our processing. So instead of typing in this range, this is where we do our cell reference. That's why I think cell reference is so great with using macros. So I'm going to put cells, and what row number are we on? Our row number is game result, which in this case will be 206. And our column number is 1, because we want to just start in 1. So this is going to, now if we press enter, it'll recognize it. So it's selecting row A206, and then it's going to paste it. So that's what the whole move VBA sheet should do, or macro should do. So let's close this out. I'm going to go to a different sheet here, and let's run the macro. Move VBA, we click run, and there we go. See, it worked. If we go to the VBA logs, it copied all this and it pasted it here in row 206, and here's our new set of records. And now let's say the next day comes, you press refresh, and maybe you got a couple games in here once this is VBA season. What we're going to do, we're going to run the macro again. Move VBA, let's press run. And there, now look, see, now it started in row 228, and it keeps adding it down to the bottom. We can keep pressing it, and it'll just keep adding the data over. And remember, we can attach this macro to a shortcut key, to a button, or what I think is kind of cool here, in the previous example, when we were in this workbook, remember we have it pull the data? What we can do, we can do call move VBA. So now we're putting a couple of our past lessons in. So when the workbook opens, it's going to refresh this, and it's going to call move VBA, which what it's going to do is copy that data right over to your next worksheet. So we can close this out. I'm not going to run it. But so now when this file opens, it's going to refresh it and copy the data over to our complete list of game logs. So all our data is set, and we didn't even do anything. We just opened the file, and the macro did all the work for us. So that's it for this example. This is a little more intense of a video, but it just shows you the power of what macros and Visual Basic can do and how it can save you time in helping you for your daily fantasy. So let me know if you get any questions. Thanks. Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to make code to save a CSV file or save a tab as a CSV file so you can have your lineups all ready to go to be uploaded into DraftKings or FanDuel. So let's say we have our worksheet where we're creating lineups, and then we have a CSV file or a tab right here, which all our lineups, it's all formatted, all ready to go, but it's listed as a sheet, and we can't upload this Excel sheet into DraftKings. We need a separate CSV file in order to do that. So we're going to make a code to write code to do this simply. So we go to Developer, Visual Basic, and I've got this over here in Module 1, and I've already wrote the code, but I just want to walk through the whole thing. So I called it sub CSV with the parentheses, so that created the routine. I got my comment here, save as a CSV file after creating the new file. So now we know what it's going to do. So the first step, you're going to do sheets, whatever sheet you want to save. I'm doing sheet csv.select. So what we're doing is it's going here and selecting the CSV file. And then what it's going to do is cells select. It's going to select everything. And whatever that selection is, it's going to copy it. So pretty much going there, right, doing copy. And then it's workbooks add. So that's going to just add a new work. So it's going to go to File, New, just a blank workbook. All it's doing is creating a new workbook here. And then the next code, let me just get back to the code. Then it's active sheet paste. So it has to be the active sheet, because since we just added this new workbook, that's all of a sudden it becomes the active sheet. And then all it's going to do is paste the data onto it, like there. I just pasted it on. And then the rest of the code is whatever the active workbook is, we're going to save as. And what format do we want? We want to save it as a CSV for MS-DOS. So this is the code for that. And then to create backup false. And all it's going to do is just going to save it as a CSV file. So let me close this out. We don't need this anymore. And let's just run the file. So it doesn't matter what sheet we're on. Say we're on salary. I'm going to go to View, Macros, and there, CSVs right here. We're going to run it. It did those steps. This already exists. Do you want to replace it? Sure. I'll put yes. There. So now we have called book3.csv. It's not the most descriptive name, but I mean that's fine. It still creates the name. If you want to resave it again, you can easily do that. But it saves it right there as a CSV file, and you have this all ready to go to upload into DraftKings or FanDuel. So I hope this example of code was helpful to you, and let's move on to the next example. Thanks. Hey everyone, in this video what I'm going to do is show you the complete build of code to send an email for one whole sheet. You can email this sheet even if there's other sheets. Let's just add another sheet on here. Just call it NBA. So say we got this file, it's got a couple sheets. We want to just email this one sheet. I'm going to show you how to write the code for it. So we've already got the email address and the subject right here. We're going to have to reference that in the code. So to do that, we're going to go to Developer, Visual Basic, and we've got the code. I've got the code built. See how I clicked on modules? It's not in the modules. I got it right. It's right in this workbook under your the email file, under the file, which is called email sheet. So we're in here and we're doing it called sub mail sheet. So you can name it whatever you want. And then we got to declare a few variables. First, we need to declare the string name, so in order for us to save the file. And then we need to declare email ID and mail subject also as strings, because those are, we're going to have to use those in our code. Next step is to get the values for email ID and mail subject, which are simply just referring to a cell. So cells 1, 1 and cells 2, 1. And when we look here on our spreadsheet, 1, 1 is row 1, column 1, which is the email address, which is my email address. And row 2, column 1 is VBA Gamelogs. That's just the name of the subject. So next, what this is going to do, it's going to copy just the one sheet. So whatever sheet we're on, which is data sheet, we're going to copy this. It doesn't matter about whatever other tabs there are. It's just going to copy this sheet because that's the one we want to send. And then it's going to save it as a separate workbook. So it's going to create a whole new file, and it's going to save it, and it's going to call it part of, and then it's going to call it this workbook name, which this workbook name is data sheet. And then you have to end it with .xls. So it names. You don't have to even call it this workbook name if you don't want. That's just a little more fancier way. You could just call it VBA Gamelogs or whatever in quotes, and then you have to have a .xls. So however you want to do it, you can say you would save it, and then once it saves it, here's just the code to send the email. So it's active workbook.sendMail. So all it's going to do is send it. And we're going to have, here's the email address, which we already called cell11, and the mail subject, which is 22. And then when it's all done, it's going to close the active workbook. So let's get to work and let's do this. So say we have this file. I'm going to go to View, Macros. And it's in this workbook.mail sheet. I'm going to click Run. And now it's going to ask a question. The file name part of email already exists. Because I already ran this macro. Do you want to replace it? Yes. So now what it's doing, it's saving the file. So as you can see up here, it's calling a part of email sheet. And then here it is. Another application is attempting to send mail. Do you want to send a mail? Then you just have to click yes. And now it should have sent the mail. So we're gonna see we got email sheet up here. That file that said part of email sheet is gone because it was closed out in the last line. And then if I go to my email, I'm going to click the inbox. I'm sure it takes us a couple seconds to load up, and there it is. It was pretty quick. VBA Gamelogs is the subject. We open it up, and here it is, part of email sheet. And here's the file. I'll just click on it to show a preview, and there's the file. So we set up a simple macro to just email the sheet just by, we just run the macro, and there's just a few lines of code in there to do it. So I hope this is a good example. Maybe you guys will make use of it, and let me know if you got any questions. Thanks.